Guys, today we're going to be solving IB past paper of May 2024. So this is one of my first papers solving May 2024. I'll be solving more. I got 7s and 6s in most of my May 2024 papers. And when in my IB biology paper one, I actually got a 7, which is a very, very, very rare percentage since they're pretty hard. So I'm going to be solving time zone 1, which is slightly easier than time zone 2. Personally, I solved the time zone 2 and I still got a 7. So we will be solving this together. It's quite an easy paper, the time zone 1. Time zone 2 was quite harder, but we're going to be doing it together. So let's begin. So the image shows the nucleus of a cell from a pancreas that is surrounded by an endoplasmic reticulum. So the keyword here is nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, pancreas. What describes this nucleus? So here, just focus on the nucleus. So it's composed of highly folded internal membranes and liquid matrix. This is false. Why? Because this describes the mitochondria and not the nucleus, okay? Mitochondria have highly folded internal membranes which look like this, okay? And the liquid matrix as well, where the chemical reactions take place, okay? So this is for the mitochondria. It contains ribosomes as the main site of protein synthesis in the cell. If this is wrong, if this is basically for Golgi apparatus. Here they are describing the Golgi apparatus. So this is not for the nucleus. It contains membrane-bound organelles. No. It contains chromatin, which is true. It does actually contain chromatin. So this is true. And it's surrounded by double membrane. This is also true. This is the double membrane of the nucleus. So this is actually true. So our answer in this case is D. So our answer is D in this case. Our second question. The image shows a single paramecium and it has a food vacuole. So here this is a function of life, carrying a function of life that contains ingested cell of a unicellular alga, which is chlorella. Okay. So what can be deduced about the paramecium? So here we said that it ingests cells of the unicellular algae chlorella. So it ingests these cells. So what can be deduced about the paramecium? It's an autotroph. That is false. It is not an autotroph because an autotroph actually produces its own food. And we have been told here that it ingests its food, right? So it is not an autotroph. It cannot perform all functions of life. We can't deduce that because they're asking us what we can deduce from this. No, we can't. And they're literally telling us that we can actually, they're describing the function of life that actually goes along with. So this is false. Then it carries out heterotrophic nutrition. That is true because what it's doing is that it's depending on another species. It's eating another species. It's not producing its own food. So yes. And it's a prokaryote. This does not tell us this. It does not talk about prokaryote. We're talking about how it ingests other foods. So it is a heterotroph. So our answer here is C. And now question 3. So basically this micrograph is from a dividing cell. What is shown in this image? 2 condensed chromosomes consisting of 4 chromatids. No, this is 1 chromosome and it has 2 chromatids, chromatid 1, chromatid 2. And this is the centromere here. So this is the centromere, right? A chromosome from a cell in telophase of mitosis? No, because by that stage of telophase, the chromatids will already have separated. False. So this is false. They would already have separated. No, and that's where the cell begins separating. So no. A chromosome from a cell in G1 of interphase. No, this is actually not true because this is before synthesis. No, because this is after synthesis. After synthesis. So no. And G1 is before synthesis. Okay, so this is false. A chromosome from a cell in metaphase. This is actually true. So we have D because metaphase is right before the centromeres, the chromosomes begins the chromatids begin splitting. So right before the chromosome begins splitting. So this is the right one. It is metaphase. So our answer is D. Now for question 4. The diagram shows the Davis-Danieli model of the cell membrane. What does the model relate to the fluid mosaic model? Okay, so how does it relate to the fluid mosaic model? Both models include a phospholipid bilayer sandwich between 2 layers of proteins. No, this is false. basically, they don't both show that the phospholipid bilayer is sandwiched between two layers of protein. This is false. B, the Davison-Danieli model does not include integral proteins, whereas the fluid mosaic model does. This is true. This is true. So we don't know if this is our answer, but this is true because the Davison-Danieli model does not include integral proteins, but the fluid mosaic model does. The fluid mosaic model shows protein saturated two layers of phospholipids. That's not how they relate, okay? Not how they relate. Okay, because one does, but the other doesn't, so that doesn't mean they relate. That's not how they relate. The Davison-Danieli model includes a phospholipid bilayer, whereas the fluid mosaic model does not. False, so our answer is B. How is a prokaryotic cell different from a eukaryotic cell? Okay, so eukaryotic cells are compartmentalized, whereas prokaryotic cells are not. That is true. And prokaryotic cells do not contain ribosomes, whereas eukaryotic cells do. No, that is false. Eukaryotic cells contain DNA, whereas prokaryotic cells do not. They actually do. They contain circular DNA, okay? So basically, whereas in eukaryotic cells, they contain linear DNA, okay? So this is false. And then for question D, prokaryotic cells have a cell wall, whereas eukaryotic cells do not. That is false. Plants are eukaryotes, and they do have chloroplast cell walls, for example. This is just an example. Just ignore that as here, but yeah. So our answer is A in this case because eukaryotic cells are compartmentalized and eukaryotic cells are not. This is true. Okay, so our answer in this case is A. Now C. It's asking us, the diagram shows two molecules which can be linked by condensation reaction, meaning that you are joining two molecules together. So joining. Okay, it's not separating because hydrolysis is separating. Condensation is when you join them. And the result of condensation is water, which in scientific terms is H2O. Okay, so what could be the products of this reaction? So we do know that water is obviously a product, and they're asking us about products in plural. So we have to remember water. So directly just cross out answers C and answer D. And then you have to eliminate between answers A and answers B, basically. So now we actually do see a glucose molecule. So this is a glucose molecule. Okay, and then we see another sugar molecule. And in this case, we do deduce that the answer is A, water and sucrose, just because we have a glucose molecule, a sucrose molecule with a fructose molecule, because this is fructose, okay? Just know that glucose is a 6 sugar, it's a 6 pentose sugar, and this is 5, okay? So that's really it. And that's why this one's glucose is slightly bigger. So that's it for 6. That's our answer for 6. So question 7, the graph shows the effect of limiting factors of on the rate of photosynthesis. So limiting factors, you have light intensity, you have temperature, and you have CO2. So these are your 3 limiting factors of photosynthesis, right? So what can be deduced from this graph? Okay, so on the y-axis, you have the rate of photosynthesis, and then on the x-axis, you have CO2 concentration. So we are focusing on the CO2 concentration in this case. So you have the low light intensity, you have the high light intensity. Okay, so at 20 relative units, the CO2 concentration at low intensity stops here, around here, like the plateau stops here, but at 80, it stops here. So it depends on the concentration, right? So our answers are at a CO2 concentration of 0.1% and the low intensity, the temperature is only a limiting factor. Okay, so just ignore these points I put here. So at 0.1, the temperature is only a limiting factor. Then the second choice is at a CO2 concentration of 0.1 and the low intensity, and light intensity is the only limiting factor. That is sort of true, just because here, temperature cannot only be the limiting factor, since the light intensity can be increased as it is not at its maximum. Okay, so A is false. B, at a CO2 concentration of 0.03% and the low light intensity. Okay, so here, and both CO2 concentration and temperature are limiting factors. No, because in this case, temperature is not a limiting factor. In this case, it's just the CO2 concentration. And D, at CO2 concentration above 0.1, there are no limiting factors. That is false because at 0.5, it can also be a limiting factor. So our answer is B, 4, 7. Okay. I'm just like double checking my answer. Okay. Now for number 8, how do human muscle cell respond to intense exercise? Okay, so human muscle cells, okay, intense exercise. So we do know that humans, like they do require oxygen. So it's aerobic respiration. They stop using oxygen and replace like glycolysis with lactic fermentation. This is wrong. This is for yeast cells. This is for yeast. This is for basically not even yeast cells, like yeast bacteria basically. So no, because they're asking specifically about humans. They produce smaller amounts of ATP in order to reduce the need for oxygen. This is not true. Okay. They produce lactate. This is true. In order to quickly supply the energy for muscle concentration, this is true. They produce ethanol. No, this is as a waste product. No, this is for yeast bacteria. So our answer is C in this case. Okay. Watson and Crick, okay, worked out the three-dimensional structure of DNA. What did the model they built show for the first time? DNA as polynucleotide? No, they did not show that. DNA contains the equal quantities of adenine and thymine. No, they did not talk about that because this is talking about the like 3D dimensional and what they built. DNA molecules have a helical shape. This is false. And the last one is DNA is a double helix. Yes, they did that and they did like a whole drawing for that with the anti-parallel sugar phosphate backbones. And they did like this whole drawing with looks something like that. Ignore my drawing, but basically the answer is D. This is something you know or you don't know. There's not much analysis behind it. Now, 10. What describes the structure of proteins? Okay, so we have to read them and figure out whether they're true or false. Is like the only strategy. And proteins are made from amino acids linked together by peptide bonds. This is true. They are constructed of amino acids and they are linked by peptide bonds. So the first one is true. This is true. Okay, the sequence of amino acids in all proteins is the same. No, the sequence actually determines the function, and sometimes there are like some abnormalities, or like it could be like a good change, or it could be a bad change, the sequence of amino acids, and it can affect like the gene, like for example, the hemoglobin and anemia. So example, hemoglobin and anemia. So no. And then a protein may consist of more than one polypeptide. Yes, and that is why it can be in the quaternary stage, okay, of its building, because you have tertiary, primary, etc. So 1 and 3 are our answers, so our answer is B. So question 11. What are the components of DNA and RNA? This is a quite easy question. The first answer is DNA ribose, RNA deoxyribose. This is wrong already. They are the opposite. And this is also wrong. So our answer is definitely not A. And then they also make the same mistake here. So we don't even have to bother reading the second question because we need to save time. So you cross out B. The third answer, this is right. This is right. But uracil is not in both DNA and RNA. Uracil is only in RNA. So our correct answer is D, because deoxyribose, ribose, and adenine. This is something you also should know, something you should like just memorize. It's actually really easy question, like 3 points. So it's quite easy. Question 12. What is the role of DNA polymerase during DNA replication? So again, what they do is actually like they just replicate. That's why they use it in the PCR test, for example, because it actually like separates the fragments of DNA and it replicates them. So basically, it adds nucleotides to the growing strand. That is true. It adds nucleotide to the template strand. No, it does not add them to the template strand. So this is false. It builds messenger RNA. No, it does not build anything. It does not build anything. It carries out translation. No, it does not. Our answer is A. Very simple. This is something you should also kind of know. So question 13. Huntington's disease is a neurodegenerative genetic disorder caused by dominant allele. Okay, dominant allele. The pedigree, meaning that one should be there and like it would directly show, like if they only have one gene, like they could be heterozygous or homozygous, and it could show. The pedigree chart for family shows the inheritance of Huntington's disease. So basically, you have a non-affected female and a affected male. So the son has Huntington's, but the daughter does not have it. Okay. So yeah. And then you have, so basically this dad's XY, and then the mom's XX, XX, XY. Okay, and it's dominant, so it automatically shows. So basically the daughter would have gotten the X gene from her dad both ways, and since it's dominant, it would have showed. So this is obviously not sex linked. So I don't think this is sex linked. So it's not sex linked. This is what we deduced from this answer, because she gets basically in her Punnett square, she would basically have, you have XY, XY. Oh, sorry, XY, XX. From her father and mother. And since she is a girl, she's a female, so basically she has, her dad has Huntington, so it's gonna be H, and then like she's gonna get the X from her dad basically. H, let's say. And then she gets, oh no, sorry, so she's gonna get the X from her dad because he's XY. H, lowercase from her mom, because again, it's her mom has to be homozygous because she can't be heterozygous or else it shows since it's dominant. So her and these are like, this is not an option for her, so her possible ones are XH, 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 XH. So she would have had it, so this is not sex linked, okay? So it's not sex linked, so A is wrong. It's so these two are right, not sex linked, not sex linked. But now we need to see the answers here. So then we see that oh my God, I made a mistake. I actually read that this is their daughter. This is not their daughter. Okay. So basically, we're gonna talk about like another daughter, I guess. But basically, since these two are married and they're okay, and since these two are married and the son basically, okay, since the dad has X, Y, and the mom has XX basically, okay, so basically the Punnett square of the child would be XY, and the dad has H and the mom has XH, XH, okay, but literally he gets the Y from his father, right? So he gets the Y from his father, right? And since his mother is not affected, then his H is gonna be this and his Y is gonna be that. So he's not gonna be affected. So this is again not sex linked, okay? So it's not sex linked. So yeah, so eliminate these. So we're gonna actually see, and we actually got to answer. Huntington's disease is not sex linked since individual 3 is affected. And individual 3 cannot be affected if it's sex linked because his mother isn't affected, right? Okay. So yeah, you don't have to read that far into it to see whether these two or these are affected. So yeah, sorry for the confusion. So question 14, which stage of DNA profiling involves the polymerase chain reaction? So basically the PCR tests. During extraction of the DNA sample, no, they don't use it during extraction. That's true. During replication of the DNA that has been cut with extraction enzymes, that is true, and then it ends up replicating them. So that is true. During electrophoresis, no, it's basically during the PCR test, not electrophoresis. Electrophoresis is like a machine that like begins separating the DNA. So this is not true. During incubation with labeled probes, no, there's no such step of incubation that has to do with DNA profiling. So the answer is B. What gas is the main contributor to the greenhouse effect? This is one of the questions that you just have to know the answers. And in this case, it's not the ozone. It's not methane. It's not hydrogen or nitrogen oxide. It's water vapor. This is something you have to memorize, honestly. But yeah, but nitrogen oxide, for example, it contributes a lot as well. But the most one is water vapor. Now, question 16. In a stable ecosystem, how is the supply of nutrients and energy maintained? Okay, so nutrient energy maintained. Nutrients and energy are effectively recycled within this ecosystem. They are not efficiently recycled, no, because a lot of energy is actually lost as heat. So lost as heat. So no, they are not efficiently recycled. Energy from the sun is cycled through food chains. No, it is not. Again, it's lost as heat and also through the food chain as heat, actually. And only approximately 10% is conserved. Okay, that's why biomass continues to decrease throughout the food chain. Okay. Nutrients are efficiently cycled within the ecosystem while there is a constant flow of energy. That is actually semi-true, just because there's a constant flow of energy. Energy is cycled through photosynthesis. No, it's not cycled through photosynthesis and respiration or food chains ensure that nutrients flow through the ecosystem. So no, energy is not cycled through photosynthesis. So the best answer we have is C, just because there is a constant flow of energy. That's why. That's the only difference that they said. 17. How are individuals in ecological community related to each other? So we have communities. So communities, they have populations. Populations are same species. But these same species, like different populations live together. You have a population of lions, you have a population of tigers, you have a population of eagles. So you have these different ones, right? And like basically that's how they are. They all belong to the same species? No, because populations belong to the same species, not communities. They all belong to the same trophic level? Definitely not, or else this wouldn't be not an ecosystem, because they need to eat one another. So you have one at the bottom, which is usually the producer, the autotroph, okay, slash autotroph. Then you have primary, then you have secondary, then you have tertiary, then you have quaternary. Okay, so basically you have this whole hierarchy in the ecosystem, or else the ecosystem wouldn't be like functioning. So B is very false. They belong to different populations. That is true. It's just like what I explained. They belong to populations composed of many species. It doesn't really have to be composed of many species. It depends. So the C is our best choice. But this is quite tricky just between these two. Like these two are very easy to eliminate, but C and D are quite hard to eliminate. Question 18. How do autotrophs living in an aquatic ecosystem obtain carbon? So that's a good question. How do they obtain carbon? And they live in an aquatic ecosystem, so basically underwater. And by diffusion of dissolved carbon dioxide and hydrogen carbonate ions, this is true. They do actually diffuse them. By feeding off on heterotrophs and obtaining carbon from carbohydrates, no. They don't even have carbohydrates. It does not make sense, no. The active transport of carbon dioxide directly from the atmosphere, no. This needs literally like proteins to like assist them, so that's false. And then the last question, by ingesting organisms with carbonate shells, that is not true, okay? That doesn't make sense. So our answer is A. Like these two, they're quite easy, especially these two, because like they don't really make sense. In question 19, in natural classification, what do all members of a genus have in common? They all have the same binomial name? No. They all belong to the same species? Definitely not. No, very false. They can freely interbreed to produce fertile offspring? No. They'd basically be no, they won't be infertile, but that's not what makes them the same genus and what they have in common. So no, they have evolved off from the same common ancestor. That's it, same common ancestor, which is why they have the same like name, I guess, what they have in common, the same genus, basically. Question 20. In the calligram shows the evolutionary shifts between a number of group of animals. What can you deduce from this calligram? So we can't really read it. We have to actually read our answers before we read it, just to save time, because again, we don't really have much time for these papers. So what can be deduced? Tuna evolved from sharks. So let's see tuna, let's see sharks. It doesn't look like they evolved from one another because they're next to each other. They don't like, it's not like you have sharks, then you have tuna. So this is false. So no. Crocodiles are most closely related to birds than to whales. Okay, so let's find crocodiles. They're here. Then you have birds, and then you have whales. Where are whales? Here. Whales are here. So basically, what we deduce is that who crocodiles are like mostly related to. So our birds are actually here. So the birds are close related to the Sauristian. I don't know if that's the way you say it. But since you actually can see that they are close related to the whale just because they're on the same clade, technically. So in the same clade. Okay, here they're in a different clade. So that's actually semi-true. That's true because they're in different clades. Clade is like a completely different clade. So they're more closely related to the bird because the whale is on a different clade. Frogs, humans, and whales do not share a common ancestor. Frogs are here. I'm going to use different color. Frogs, humans, and whales. Now, frogs and humans do share a common ancestor. So that's basically, wait, no, humans and whales do share common ancestor. So this is not true. C is not true. Then sharks and tuna evolved later than humans. No, they actually evolved before because shark and tuna are here and humans are here. So that is not true. Humans are later in the clade, so that later in like the evolutionary relationship, so that's false. Now you have question 21. So a central idea as a theory of evolution is that species may evolve gradually over time from a common ancestor. Okay, gradually over time from a common ancestor. Which statement explains the pattern of evolution seen in this diagram? So here we're going to start reading them and seeing which ones are true, which ones aren't. So basically we're going to read. I'm just gonna like look at it a bit. So they have a common ancestor, and here you can see them slightly begin changing. So let us see what is true and what is false. Beak shape shows genetic variability in the common ancestor. That is true just because their beak shapes do begin changing. So it's like genetic variability because they do begin changing. Changes in the beak shape that occur during the lifetime of an individual bird are passed on the next generation. Not necessarily not passed on to the next generation, just because this depends on like the it's not genetics. It is the environment. Okay. Changes in the beak shape are heritable and make each species better adapted to the environment. Yeah, so basically it's adaptation. So it's the environment has to do with adaptation. So it's not the ones that occur during the lifetime. It's the ones that are basically just to adapt. So our answer is 1 and 3. So let's check our answers. So this is false. No, this has 2. It's false. This is correct. This is false because it has 2. So our answer is C. Yeah. Now for question 22. So basically the dichotomous key shown here can be used to distinguish 6 major animal phyla. Based on the dichotomous key, which letter represents an organism in the phylum Mollusca? So we need to identify the Mollusca. So let's start 1. A, the animal is symmetrical. Yes, they are symmetrical. So we go to 2. Okay, so yes. So now 2. Animal has radial symmetry. Yes, they do. So you have to go to 3. We went to 3. 4. Animal has an anus. Yes, they do have an anus. And 4. Animal has a visibly segmented body. Actually, no, they do not have a segmented body because they are molluscas. Look, their body is not segmented. So the answer is no. So our answer for 22 is B. Animal has an exoskeleton. You don't have to read this. Don't waste your time. Now, this is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want part 2, please like and subscribe so I can continue. If you want private tutoring, please contact me. And my email will probably be down below. If it's not, then you can just check out my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed this video.